These are the instructions for my pool gift box. So I'm starting with the walls of my pool, which are really the walls of my box, and I'm just folding down on all the score lines for both pieces. So for both pieces, I have a large flap on the top, a tab on the bottom, and then a side tab on the right. I'm just putting glue all over one of my tabs, and then I'm bringing my other piece over and I'm gluing the cut edge right along the score line of my tab. I'm going to flip my piece over. I'm putting glue along the second side tab. I'm folding the other end over so that the cut edge is right along the score line. So next I have my bottom tabs on the left and I have my flaps on the right. So next I'm putting glue all over all 8 of those flaps, and then I'm folding them inwards. And then I'm just going into my bone folder and spreading that glue. And I'm working my way around the shape, doing that for all 8 flaps. So next I have 2 octagons that are approximately the same size. I've cut one out of 80-pound cardstock and the other one out of craft board. I have my tabs towards the right this time, and I'm just putting glue all over those 8 tabs. I'm folding my tabs inwards so they're all pointing towards the center of my shape. And then I'm taking my craft board piece and I'm just lowering it into the walls of my shape. And then I'm going in with my bone folder and I'm just spreading that glue. So next I'm going to flip my piece over. I'm putting glue all over my octagon, the one that's cut out of cardstock. And then I'm just gluing it to the bottom of my box. I'm going to flip my piece over, and again I'm going in there and I'm just spreading that glue. Next I have these rectangles with a score line in the center, so I've just folded them in half on that center score line. I'm holding my rectangle in a V formation and putting glue all over the interior, and then I'm just placing them just on that angle of my octagon, like so. So on right against the bottom, and the score lines are right on top of one another. And I'm doing that for all 8 of them. So now that I've decorated the walls of my box, I'm going to move on to the lid. And so next I have my lid piece, and I'm just folding down on all the score lines for it. I'm putting glue on those little tiny triangles that are between the sides of my octagon. So I'm gluing the cut line right to the score line of that triangular tab. And I'm doing that for all 8 triangles. So now that those are all glued in, I'm just putting glue on the flaps that are on the other side, and I'm folding them inwards. And then I'm going in with my bone folder and just spreading that glue. And then I'm just doing that for all 8 sides. So that's the frame of the lid done. I'm putting on the same trim pieces as I did for the walls. So I've got these little tiny rectangles and I'm folding them in half on the score line. And then I have them in the same V formation as for the bottom. I'm putting glue on the inside and then just adhering them over the score lines on all 8 of them. So I had some technical difficulties during the recording of the assembly instructions. So I'm assembling the lower part of the pool using different materials. For this version, I used holographic vinyl and I used the blue one. For this version, I'm using holographic sparkle vinyl in a darker blue. I have the base of my pool and the walls, and I'm folding down on the score lines for the walls of my pool. They're 2 identical pieces. I'm putting glue on the side tab of one of my pieces and joining the other one to it. I want the cut edge of this piece to be right along the score line of my tab. I've already applied the holographic sparkle vinyl to my octagon piece. Now I have 8 rectangles to apply to the walls of the pool, and I'm just applying them, trying to center them between the score lines as best I can. As opposed to most boxes, the part that you're going to see is actually the inside of this box. I want the cut edge to be right along the score line, and I want the score line at the top and the bottom to be nice and even. On one edge I have the thin tabs, and on the other edge I have the larger tabs. The larger tabs are the bottom of my pool. So I'm just putting glue all over those large tabs from the score line to the end. And then I'm just topping my shape up so that all those tabs covered in glue are pointed towards the center of my shape. And then I'm taking my octagon piece and just lowering it into my shape. And then I'm using my bone folder and I'm just spreading that glue. So for this one, my tabs are on the outside. So next I'm going to flip my piece over and I'm putting glue on all 8 of the tabs that are at the top of my pool. And then I'm taking my octagon frame and I'm just lowering it over my pool shape. And then I'm going in with my bone folder and I'm just spreading that glue. So next I'm covering those tabs and the perimeter of my pool in glue. And I'm taking the frame of my lid and just lowering it on top of my pool piece, making sure that the edges are nice and even. And then I'm going to flip it over. And again, I'm going in with my bone folder and I'm just making sure that I'm spreading that glue. There should be a tiny little frame all the way around. So next I'm taking the protective layer off my piece of acetate. And I have another octagon frame. This one is white. I'm going around the frame, putting double-sided tape on all 8 sides. Then I'm taking the protective layer off my double-sided tape, and then I'm taking my piece of acetate and I'm doing my best to center it over my white frame. And then I'm putting a second layer of double-sided tape over the acetate, but within that white frame. Then I have this little splash piece. I've covered my cardstock with that same holographic sparkle vinyl, and I'm covering the underside of it in double-sided tape. And then I'm removing the liner on my double-sided tape. I'm positioning this piece right over the 2 holes in my acetate. So next I have the pieces for my ladder. Now for the steps of my ladder, I have 6 of them, but I have 12 step pieces. I'm folding on the score lines for the tabs at either end on 2 pieces. So I'm putting glue on the underside, except for those tabs, and I'm gluing my second one exactly over it. So my tabs are not glued together, just that part in between. I'm going to do that with all 6 of them. I have these 2 strips with little cutouts and I have my little step pieces. So I'm inserting the tabs, my little steps on both ends into my strips. So that's the first rung of my ladder. I'm putting glue on those tabs and I'm just gluing them flat. And I'm just doing that on both sides. I'm just working my way up the ladder and I'm just gluing in all 6 steps the exact same way. I have the railings for my ladder. 2 of them are plain and 2 of them have little tabs on the inside and at the very end. And then I'm putting glue all along the side of my ladder, all over those tabs. And I'm gluing my railing piece right on top. The bottom should be exactly even and the edges on both sides should also be even. And I'm just going in between the steps and spreading that glue. So I've got the tab here folded towards the center of my ladder and this tab here folded inwards also towards the center of my ladder. So I'm putting glue all over the side of my ladder and then taking my second piece. So I want the handles to go in the same direction. Nice and even at the bottom and on both sides. So at the end of my handle pieces, I have 2 tabs and I'm just putting double-sided tape from the score line to the end on both tabs. I'm back with my assembled ladder. I've inserted those tabs through the cutouts in my acetate. I'm just pulling them through and bending them so that they're flat on my acetate layer. So I have my lid on my box and I'm removing the liner on my double-sided tape. This octagon has to be directly on top of the frame of my pool. And I have 2 extra handle pieces. This is just to make them a little bit more sturdy. Kind of looks like a candy cane. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of it. So I've got one for the left hand side of my ladder and one for the right hand side. And then on my ladder, I have these 2 tabs. And these are just going to help glue my ladder in place. So I'm just putting glue on the underside of the 2 tabs. And I'm just gluing them to my lid piece. So next I have my flamingo. I have 3 circles. One of them has a slit in it. And then I have my flamingo pieces. Now I have 3 pieces that I've stacked up, one on top of another. 2 of them have these little oval tabs. And I've applied some vinyl for the face. So I've got black and white vinyl, little tiny pieces that I've applied to make the face of my flamingo. I'm just putting glue on both sides of those tabs. I'm putting my flamingo right in between that little slit that's in my circular piece. And then I'm putting glue on the underside and gluing the 2 other circular pieces to the bottom just to make it a little sturdier. Now I have a plain one and I've cut this out of Cricut shimmer paper. Because the underside of this is white, I've just colored in the edges. I'm stacking up 3 other circular shapes underneath, and I'm using double-sided tape to glue them on top of my box. For the bottom of my box, I have these 8 pieces of grass, and I'm just going to glue them around the perimeter at the very bottom.